Imagine this: 30,000 citizens from one of the world's poorest countries voluntarily leave their jobs for 7 consecutive days without pay or bonuses to do something that, by conventional logic, is impossible. They cleaned their entire country. Not a city, not a province, but an entire nation. And they succeeded. But this isn't just a story about environmental sanitation. This is the story of how 22 million Burkinabe people prove that Africa doesn't need saving. They save themselves, and in doing so, have become an inspiration for the entire world. If you've never heard of Ibrahim Traoré and the 7 Day Miracle in Burkina Faso, it's because some people don't want you to know that a poor nation can achieve things that wealthy countries only dream of. To understand why this is so shocking, we must go back to 2021. Burkina Faso was one of the poorest countries in the world, ranked 182nd out of 189 countries on the Human Development Index. The nation faced three simultaneous crises that led many international experts to deem it an unsalvageable failed state. The first crisis was terrorism. Since 2015, terrorist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS had occupied over 40% of the national territory. More than 2 million people were displaced from their homes, becoming refugees in their own country. Each week, at least 50 to 100 civilians were killed in attacks. The education system collapsed, with over 6,000 schools forced to close, leaving 1.2 million children out of school. Hospitals and health centers were destroyed or abandoned, leaving millions without basic medical services. The second crisis was economic. The GDP per capita had fallen to just $760 per year, among the lowest in the world. Youth unemployment reached a staggering 85%. The agricultural sector, the nation's economic backbone, was paralyzed by violence and climate change. Food prices soared by 300% in 2 years, leaving 3.5 million people facing acute hunger. The local currency depreciated disastrously, and inflation hit 15% annually. The third crisis was political and social. Successive coups in 2022 plunged the country into chaos. Over 200 protests and riots occurred in 18 months. Public trust in the government plummeted to a record low of just 8%, according to an Afrobarometer survey. Corruption was rampant, with an estimated 73% of the state budget being lost. The judicial system collapsed, crime surged, and drug and human trafficking ran rampant. For decades, the World Bank, IMF, and other international organizations asserted that foreign aid, structural adjustment loans, and Western military intervention were the only path to save Burkina Faso. They produced voluminous reports with thousands of pages of analysis, seemingly irrefutable figures, and detailed recommendations on how to modernize Africa according to the Western model. Between 2015 and 2022, over $8 billion in international aid was poured into Burkina Faso, but the situation only grew worse. They were dead wrong, until Ibrahim Traoré appeared and completely changed the game. Ibrahim Traoré is not a typical politician or a Hollywood celebrity. Born in 1988 in a small village in Mohun province, he grew up in a poor farming family with 12 siblings. His parents grew sorghum and raised livestock to make a living. From a young age, Traoré had to work in the fields to help support his family, but he remained dedicated to his studies with the dream of changing his circumstances. He graduated from high school with excellent grades and received a scholarship to the University of Ouagadougou to study geology. After graduating with a bachelor's degree in 2011, he pursued a master's in mineral resources. Alongside his studies, he joined the army in 2009 as a lieutenant and was quickly recognized for his leadership, strategic thinking, and patriotism. What set Traoré apart was his consistent refusal of opportunities to study abroad in Europe or America, as many friends advised, because he believed the solution for Burkina Faso must come from the Burkinabe people themselves. The context of his rise to power was extremely complex. On September 30th, 2022, after the second coup of the year, Ibrahim Traoré, then 34 years old, became the youngest president in Africa. The coup was largely supported by the populace, who were deeply disappointed with the previous government's inability to address terrorism and corruption. However, the international reaction was highly negative. ECOWAS imposed sanctions, the EU cut aid, and France and the United States strongly condemned the move, threatening to isolate Burkina Faso. Many experts predicted he would be just another puppet for foreign powers or would be overthrown within months. When Ibrahim Traoré took office, his first message was simple but resolute. Burkina Faso will liberate itself with the hands and minds of the Burkinabe people. We don't need anyone to teach us how to be masters of our own country. But unlike the empty promises of past politicians, Traoré had prepared a concrete, scientific, and achievable plan he called the Burkina Faso Stand-Up Strategy. Phase 1 was mastering the territory, lasting the first 6 months. The goal was to retake the 40% of territory occupied by terrorists by increasing the army from 11,000 to 50,000 soldiers, training a local militia of 100,000 volunteers, and establishing a community-based intelligence system. He refused to use foreign mercenaries or French troops, focusing instead on training and equipping Burkina Faso's own military and civilian forces. Resources were mobilized by cutting 70% of government administrative costs, recovering corrupt funds, and increasing taxes on foreign mining companies from 10% to 35%. Phase 2 was economic reconstruction over the next 12 months. Building on the success of securing the territory, he planned to develop agriculture with 2 million new hectares of arable land, build 500 small dams for irrigation, and develop the agri-processing industry. Simultaneously, he aimed to expand gold mining from 60 to 100 tons per year to increase budget revenues. The expected challenges were a lack of capital and technology, but he decided to partner with Russia, China, and other African nations instead of relying on the West. Phase 3 was sustainable development, with a 5 to 10-year vision. The goal was to transform Burkina Faso into a center for the production and export of gold, cotton, and agricultural products in West Africa. He planned to build a modern education and healthcare system based on indigenous culture and languages rather than imposing a Western model. The international impact would be to become a model of independent development for other African nations, breaking free from dependence on former colonial powers. Sustainability would be ensured by building strong institutions, training a new generation of young leaders, and creating a diversified economy, not reliant on a single sector. And the most crucial element that made all the difference, it would all be done by the people of Burkina Faso, with the resources and intellect of Burkina Faso. No aid from the World Bank, no loans from the IMF, no dependency on Western technology, no need for foreign experts. This was a path of complete self-reliance that few poor nations had ever dared to try. And then, on June 15th, 2023, the miracle began. June 15th, 2023 will be recorded as the day Burkina Faso changed forever. There were no loudspeakers urging people on. There was no top-down propaganda. There were no threats or coercion. There was only a simple message, passed from mouth to mouth, from village to village. Next week we will clean our country together. Whoever can join, come with your hoes, shovels, and your will. No one will be paid, but we will do it for the love of our homeland. The people's response was instantaneous and more powerful than anything Ibrahim Traoré could have imagined. Within 3 days, the message had spread like wildfire across all 45 provinces of Burkina Faso, not through social media or mass media, but through the traditional word-of-mouth system that has existed in Africa for thousands of years. In the center province, home to the capital, Ouagadougou, more than 8,000 people, from ages 15 to 70, gathered at 25 different points from 5 a.m. on June 18. They brought hoes, shovels, baskets, wheelbarrows, and even old trucks to transport waste. The work was divided into groups, one for cleaning streets, one for sanitizing public buildings, one for planting trees, and one for repairing damaged roads. On the first day alone, they collected 2,400 tons of waste, repainted 150 schools and health centers, and planted 5,000 trees along major roads. What was astonishing was that not a single conflict or argument occurred. Everyone worked with such a joyful and united spirit that many foreign witnesses could not believe their eyes. In the Haute-Bassin province, the country's second most important economic hub, the unique feature was its many industrial and commercial zones, suffering from severe environmental pollution from years of poorly planned factory operations. Aminata Ouedraogo, a 42-year-old mother of 5 who works as a street vendor, told a local reporter, "I can earn 2,000 CFA francs a day selling goods, but for the next 7 days I won't, because money can be earned anytime, but the chance to change the country comes once in a lifetime." The local challenge was dealing with hazardous industrial waste, but the people contacted retired engineers and university students for guidance on safe disposal. As a result, they cleaned 15 kilometers of a polluted river and transformed 8 dump sites into small gardens. The quality assurance process was taken very seriously. Each area had an inspection committee of 3 to 5 respected individuals to evaluate the completed work based on 5 criteria: cleanliness, safety, sustainability, aesthetics, and community needs. Measurement and tracking were done using a count and photograph method. The number of trash bags collected, square meters cleaned, trees planted, and structures repaired were all carefully recorded and photographed as evidence. Adjustments and improvements were made continuously as groups met in the evening to discuss what went well, what needed improvement, and the plan for the next day. Transparency was ensured as all information about progress, difficulties, and achievements was publicly posted at gathering points and through village announcement systems. A specific example from the Gunghin neighborhood in Ouagadougou: a group of 45 people, including construction workers, farmers, students, and small business owners, undertook the Revive the Canal project, cleaning a 2-kilometer drainage canal that had been clogged for 5 years. On the first day, they surveyed the entire canal, marked the heavily congested sections, and planned each phase in detail. The biggest challenge was dealing with the foul odor and accumulated hazardous waste. Their solution was to work in shifts: a morning shift from 6 to 10 a.m. when it was cool, a break during the midday heat, and an afternoon shift from 4 to 7 p.m. They made their own masks from cotton cloth and leaves and used lemons and activated charcoal powder to reduce the smell. On the third day, halfway through, they discovered a broken old drainage pipe causing sewage from 20 homes to flow into the canal. Instead of reporting it to the authorities and waiting, they bought PVC pipe and cement to fix it themselves. On the 5th day, a heavy rain caused the water level to rise, flooding their work area. The team quickly improvised a pumping system by connecting an old pump to rubber hoses to drain the water. The final result was not just a clean canal, but also a new drainage system, banks planted with trees, and a small footpath for residents. The measurable results of this project: 180 cubic meters of waste and sludge removed from the canal, 15 damaged drainage points repaired, 800 meters of new footpath built, and 300 trees planted along the banks. The completion time was 40% faster than the original 10-day projection. The cost was only 15% of what a private company had estimated for the same job. Boubacar Sawadogo, a 35-year-old construction worker in the group, shared, "I've been in this trade for 12 years and have worked on many large, well-paid projects, but I have never felt as happy working as I have these past 7 days. It's not about the money, but because I know I am building for my own community." Every brick laid has meaning. Every drop of sweat is worthwhile. June 22nd, 2023 will be forever remembered in the history of Burkina Faso and perhaps the world. It was the day the 7-day national cleanup campaign concluded with results that surpassed all expectations. At 6 p.m., as the final gong sounded across the country, 30,000 Burkinabe citizens had completed a feat that no one could have imagined. Mariam Compaoré, a 29-year-old primary school teacher in the city of Koudougou, shared, "Before the cleanup campaign, I used to tell my students they had to study hard to go work abroad because there were no opportunities here. Now, I tell them that Burkina Faso needs talented people to build the country, and we can create wonderful opportunities right here. My life has completely changed because I see hope and feel proud of my profession. Coming to class each day is no longer a burden, but a joy to contribute to building the future generation." The before and after images show a night and day difference. Roads filled with potholes and trash became clean streets lined with trees. Schools with peeling walls and leaky tin roofs became bright buildings with neat playgrounds. Markets that were filthy and chaotic became civilized and orderly places of commerce. The impact rippled beyond Burkina Faso's borders like ever-strengthening waves. In West Africa, the reaction from neighboring countries was initially skeptical, but quickly turned to admiration and a desire to learn. Mali and Niger, two countries also affected by terrorism, sent delegations to study Burkina Faso's popular mobilization model. Guyana and Côte d'Ivoire began discussing the application of similar policies to address environmental pollution and community development. Senegal and Benin invited Ibrahim Traoré to visit and share his experience at regional conferences. For the first time, the African Union, AU, declared Burkina Faso a model of sustainable development and proposed studying its replication across the continent. Globally, the reaction from international organizations showed a clear shift in attitude. The United Nations praised Burkina Faso as an outstanding example of community-led development and invited it to join the Sustainable Development Council. The World Bank had to acknowledge that Burkina Faso's self-reliant model was more effective than many traditional aid programs and proposed cooperation instead of imposing conditions. The IMF, for the first time, admitted its mistake in underestimating the potential of poor countries and proposed changing its approach to development assistance. Leading development experts like Jeffrey Sachs and Joseph Stiglitz publicly praised the silent revolution in Burkina Faso, calling it a turning point in development thinking. The international press, from the BBC and CNN to Al Jazeera, had to change their coverage of Burkina Faso from negative to positive, with hundreds of articles about the Burkina Faso miracle. The international investment community began to take a serious interest in the Burkinabe market, with over 20 foreign investment funds making inquiries about opportunities. Within the global African diaspora, the strongest reaction came from migrants and their second and third generation descendants. Thousands of people of African descent in the US and Europe formed Support Burkina Faso groups to fundraise and share the positive story. Remittances sent to Africa increased by 45% in the last 6 months of 2023, with a large portion directed toward Burkina. And most importantly, this model can be replicated and applied to any nation or community with the right determination and methodology. Burkina Faso has proven that you don't need ideal conditions, abundant resources, or foreign help to create fundamental change. So, what can we learn from the Burkina Faso miracle? The story of Burkina Faso teaches us 5 important lessons that any community can apply. Lesson 1. The power of self-reliance and autonomy. When Burkina Faso refused to depend on aid and decided to solve its own problems, it discovered immense hidden potential and resources that had never been tapped before. Instead of waiting for $50 million from the World Bank to implement a 6-month project, they completed a similar task with just $2.8 million in 7 days. A specific example is the repair of 2,500 public facilities, which foreign contractors had quoted at $200,000 each, but which local people accomplished for just $30,000 with even better quality. This means any community can achieve more than they imagine if they stop waiting for external solutions and start creatively leveraging their available resources. Lesson 2: The value of unity and community spirit. The success of Burkina Faso did not come from a single genius or a magic policy, but from the collective power of 30,000 people working towards a common goal. There were no coercive orders, no system of punishment, only a spirit of volunteerism and shared responsibility. A specific example is how they self-organized into small groups, assigned tasks based on individual abilities, resolved internal conflicts, and motivated each other to overcome difficulties. In any project or goal, the power of the collective always surpasses individual effort, and fostering genuine unity is the decisive factor for success. Lesson 3: The importance of a clear and inspiring vision. Ibrahim Traoré had not just a short-term plan, but a clear long-term vision that helped everyone understand they were contributing to something larger than themselves. The message, "Clean the country in 7 days," might sound simple, but it carried a profound meaning about reclaiming control of their destiny and building a better future for their children. A specific example is how he explained that cleaning up trash was not just for a clean environment, but to prove that the Burkinabe people were capable of managing their own country. This teaches us that any project or initiative needs a grand vision to create motivation and meaning for concrete actions. Lesson 4: The strength of simple yet effective solutions. Instead of waiting for advanced technology or vast resources, the people of Burkina Faso used the simplest tools like hoes, shovels, baskets, and wheelbarrows to achieve incredible results. They built waste transport carts from old bicycle frames, used plastic bottles as funnels and buckets, and used WhatsApp to coordinate their work. The most concrete example is the repair of a 2-kilometer canal clogged for 5 years in just 5 days with manual tools, a task that engineering firms had reported would require expensive machinery and a long time. This proves that creativity and determination are often more important than perfect material conditions. Lesson 5: The importance of execution and concrete action. Many countries and communities have wonderful plans and visions on paper, but Burkina Faso proved that true success lies in the ability to turn ideas into concrete action. From day one, everyone knew exactly what they needed to do, where, when, and how. They had a system for tracking daily progress, adjusting plans when they encountered difficulties, and always focusing on measurable results. Examples include counting every bag of trash collected, measuring every square meter cleaned, taking before and after photos as evidence, and holding nightly review meetings to improve for the next day.